Hello guys, so today we're going to learn how we can add pagination to our data display. Of course, I'm using tables and into our Fyne application. So I have this very simple application that allows the user to upload their data, and then it is displayed using a table. And of course, this is the upload button that uploads the data and then displays it. So I'm just going to run this simple application so that you can see how it looks like. And then we're going to add pagination. Of course, as we all know, pagination is very important, especially for displaying a lot of data. So you click on upload data, and then I have this very simple data. And then once you upload it, you're going to have this data. So currently I have the name, age, profession, and location, and this is the test data that I am using. So after upload, you're going to have this. So I'm going to add a pagination down here that you can be able to see maybe next button and previous button, and then maybe page 1 of this total number of data. So let us get started. So the first thing we are going to do, of course, we have to define our variables. I'm going to define the page size. Of course, page size tells us the number of items that are going to be displayed by the table at that particular page, and I'm also going to define the current page. So just going to call it page size. I can say maybe 2, because currently we have 1 2 3 4 5 6. We have 6 items, so I just say page size of 2, and then I can say the current page is going to be 0. Okay, so after defining our pages, we have to define our functions. Of course, in this case, we are going to define the next button and the previous button, and then we'll also define a function that can be used to display to update the page labels. So we are going to come down here, and then we're going to first define a navigation label, navigation controls, I mean. So for the controls, we're going to have a previous button, then I can copy this, then we're going to have the next button. Okay, and then we can just define them here. I can just call this priv btn, and then I'm going to say, of course, it's going to be a widget button, widget dot new button, and then I'm just going to call this priv. For now, I'm just going to call it nil. Then I can copy this, then I'm going to call this next, because I'm going to say this is going to be next. Okay, after defining our buttons, I want to display them onto this table, and then I'm going to come down here and maybe say navigation. Now this, I'm going to define a layout that's going to put them in a horizontal container. So I'm just going to say container dot new hbox, and then of course we're going to have the priv btn, and then we're going to have the next btn, and then it's going to be here at the bottom. Okay, when you're using a border, when you hover over this, you can see you have the top and the bottom. So the top is going to be the upload button, and then the navigation button is going to be at the bottom. Okay, so after defining this, we have to add maybe let me see, let's just run it and see that and ensure that it is working. Yeah, it's there. So the next thing we want to add is a label. We want to define our label so that we can be able to view it. So I can just come up here just above this, and then I can maybe say page label, of course, it's going to be a widget with new label. It's going to be empty for now because we have to be updating it with the changes of the page size and the uploaded data. So we can put the page label here, and let's see that it's working. Yes, so there's an empty space here because of the page label. So let's now implement our functions. Now the previous button is going to do the following. It's going to be of course a function that is going to look at the current page, and it's going to be incrementing it. No, it's going to be decrementing it because it's a previous button, and it's not going to go below 0, okay, because we don't want it to be negative. So another thing that we need to do, when you click on the previous button, it has to update this label here, okay, because if you're in page 1, maybe page 1 of 3, it's going to be, oh, if you go to the, maybe you're in page 3 and then you go back to page 2, the label should be updated. So we need an update label function. So I'm going to define it here, update label. Let me just call it update page label. Of course, it's going to be a function. Now, what this update page label is going to do is going to update the total pages, and it's also going to update the page label. Okay, so the first thing we have to do, we have to get the total number of pages. So to get the total number of pages, we're going to calculate the length of the data, of course -1, because we don't want the header to be part of it, and then we're also going to have to consider the page size. Okay, so the first thing we do, we're just going to say total pages, which is going to be, we need to get the length of the data, then we subtract 1, then we need to add the page size, because you also subtract 1, and then we're going to divide it by the page size so that we can get the total number of pages. So whenever you update the page size, the number of items, the total pages are going to change. Okay, because if we have 3 pages, let's say the page size of 2, and our total data is going to be 6, like currently we have 6 items here, so 6, of course, then I want to display 2 is going to be 3 pages. If I want to display 3, is going to be 2 pages. You get the point? So the total pages will be changing, and then we also have to ensure that if the total pages is equal to 0, okay, total pages is going to be equal to 1. We want it to get to 1, and then we're going to update the page label. Okay, then we're going to set text to, of course, after any update, we want it to, the label to be maybe page 1 of 3, page 1 of 2, so those values need to be updated every time. So just going to say page, also with a space, and then we're going to get now when we're getting the current page, currently the current page is an integer, okay, and here set text accepts only a string, so we have to convert that integer to a string. We're going to get strconv .iter. What this does, what iter does, it accepts an integer and returns a string. Okay, so we're going to get the current page plus 1. Okay, and then of strconv .iter, of course, the total pages, total pages. Okay, this is the update page label. Okay, Now let's implement the previous button, because this is going to be a function. And then what we have to ensure is that the current page is not less than 0. So we're just going to say if current page greater than 0, then the current page, we have to subtract it. Of course, the current page, currently we've said it's 0. Okay, so if it is greater than 0, we have to be subtracting it because it's previous button. And then after doing that, we need to refresh the data, so that it reflects the previous data. Okay, and of course now in that case we won't be using this data because it's now we are paginating it, so each page should display its unique data. But we'll implement that as we finish this. And then after refreshing the page, we need to update the page label. Okay, now for the next page, of course this is going to be a function as well. And then in this case, now we're implementing the next page, we have to get the current page plus 1. Of course, we have to consider the page size as well and the length of the data minus the header. Okay, so we're just going to say if the current page plus 1, because it's 0. Okay, and then we're going to multiply it by the page size. Okay, and then if it is less than the length of the data, minus the header. Okay, if this one is true, then we're going to increment it. That means if we have more pages ahead, we can go to the next page. Okay, so we are going to increment it. What this is doing is looking at the current page and then add it plus 1. If it is less than the length of the data minus 1, that means if there is more data ahead, we're going to increment the current page. Okay, and then after doing that, we're going to do a table.refresh so that it can capture the next data. And then of course we also have to update the page label. Okay, now we have implemented our next button, we have implemented our previous button, and have implemented our update page label. But when you run this, let's just run it and see. Let's run it. Let us upload our data. Now currently nothing is happening here. Okay, as you can see, we are calculating the data, but now our table is not responding. Okay, since the page size is 2 per item, and then we have 6 total, so that's why we have 3 pages. But for now it's not responding, so we have to update this data so that it can be able to respond to this. So the next thing we're supposed to do here, we have to update how this table is capturing our data. So what we have to do, we're going to come down here, and of course when you upload, okay, we'll add it later. Let's just finish updating that function again. And then when you come down here, we're going to create a function that is going to get page data based on the current page and the page size. Okay, so you can just say get page data. Okay, I'm just going to use the default one, and this is what we're going to return. We're going to return the data based on its start and the end data. Okay, because we want to know that this page contains this particular data and the next page contains a particular data, so that it can be updated as the table is being refreshed. Okay, so we're going to have to ensure that there is some data. If the data is less than or equal to 1, we're going to return the data. The next thing, we have to define the start. Okay, the start of the data, because we're going to have the current page, and then we're going to multiply it by the page size plus 1, and then the end, we're going to capture the start page and then you're going to add the page size and then the minimum value of the data. Get the min value of that particular data. So you're just going to get the start, then plus the page size, okay, and then the length of data, and then we're going to append. We're going to append the results. Going to append the result with the data, because considering the start to end. So this is how we get the data. We have to know the start of the data, the end of the data, and then the result it will return. It will depend on the current page and the page size. So if these two changes, then the type of data and the amount of data that is going to be returned is going to be so different. Now let us update our table. Now here we're not going to use data, just going to say get page data, okay, and then the same thing should be able to this. We can maybe say maybe page data. We can just define a variable here, of course, get page data, and then we're going to update this with page data to get. Okay, so let us run our application and see how it's working so far. So let's upload the data, and then we can see it's working, but we need to update this on page upload, so that when you upload the data, you should be able to update the page label as well. So let's try running it again, ensure that it's working. Let us upload the data, then now it's working as expected. So guys, basically, as you can see, let's try changing the page size to 3, then we run it. Let's upload our data. Yeah, as you can see, now we have 2 pages. So basically you can't go beyond this, you can't go beyond that. So basically that's how you add pagination to your Fyne applications. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.